Alright, what's up? So today we're going to be making something pretty dang cool. We're going to be making some ninja claws. These were originally used to climb walls and to disembowel enemy opponents. So that's what they were used for. So what are you going to need to make this project? Well, you're going to need a variety of tools. You're going to need a drill with metal drill bits, so just a whole set. You're going to need an angle grinder with both a polishing, sharpening blade and a cutoff blade. And you're going to need a wood saw. Now the supplies you're going to need are going to be some plate metal. So I'm actually using an old skill saw blade because that's pretty strong steel. It's not too thick. You're going to want to use some actually high quality steel. You don't want to use old iron or like an old bracket, because that steel's not going to hold its edge and it's not going to stand up to use very well. So you want to try to get some kind of steel that actually will hold an edge. You're going to need a pair of bolts. Now I got a 1/2 inch bolt. The size of the bolt is going to be determined by the size of your hand. You want a bolt that will go just a little bit beyond the length of your hand, because this is what's going to form the center of your claws. I'll show you how that works in a minute, but you're going to need 2 of those with the nut that goes on the end. You're going to need a dowel, a wooden dowel. Now this is actually just a part of an old broom handle, but so whatever you use will work. It just needs to be a wooden dowel. And you're going to need some nylon straps. Now these are just straps with some ladder brackets on the end. Very simple, but they'll get the job done. So once you have all your supplies, you can get started. So the first thing you're going to do is take the steel that you're going to use and you're going to mark where you want to cut the claws. Now, the claws are going to be determined by the size of your hand. So essentially, the base of the claws is going to sit right about at the palm here, and then the claws are going to go up into your fingers. So when you reach around to about this part, you'll have your fingers around the outside of the claws. That allows you to put tension on the claws, which allows you to use them to climb, to block weapons, or really whatever you want. But that's what they need to be. So the length of the claws is determined by the length of your fingers. So I'm going to want claws that reach roughly to about the second joint in my finger. And then the length, and then I'm going to use my longest finger to determine the length of that. So I'm going to use my middle finger here. And again, you can't really measure this because your finger's an organic shape. So it's going to be very hard to try to get actual geometric measurements. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to look on here, and I'm going to mark roughly where it looks like where I want the base of it, and then I'm going to mark where I want the end at the top of the claw. And so right here is where I want the base, right here is where I want the top of the claw, and then I'm just going to add a claw on there. So what I want to do is I want to get as many claws out of here as I can, and I'm going to need 8 claws total, because 4 for each hand. So I'm just going to kind of mark this, and I'm going to start over here on the end. So claw's going to need to be decently wide, because you're going to have your 1/2 inch bolt actually go through the base of it. So I'm just going to mark this, and I'm going to mark the size around that I need the base, at least the base of my claw to be, so I know what size hole I'm going to be working with when I drill it. So I'm going to mark that. So the hole I'm going to drill is going to be about that size right there. So now knowing that, I'm going to work with that. So I'm going to round off. You want the edges that go into the palm of your hands to be round. Otherwise, it's going to cut your hands. And then you want it to come up and form a claw. So again, this is not an exact science. You're going to want to work with what you've got, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the first claw, and then to make sure they're all the same size, I'm just simply going to cut the first one out, and then I'm going to lay it on here and just sketch out the rest of the claws and do it that way. That way I know they'll all be the same size and they'll all be what I want. So this is going to be roughly the shape of my first claw. You can see there it's about the length. It's about the length I want for my finger, because that part. So when I wrap my finger around the claw, because you want the claw to be able to conceal in your hand. That's the point of this. It was a small concealable weapon. So I'm actually going to make this claw a little bit longer, but you can see that how I measured it. So the round part needs to sit here in the palm of your hand, and then you want to sketch the rest of it based on that. So, okay, so I made the claw a little bit larger here. So this is what the claw is going to look like. I'm going to cut this out now with my cutoff blade and my angle grinder. Okay, so here I got my first claw cut out. So now what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to lay this on my piece of metal here, and I'm going to trace out as many more of these as I can within this piece of metal, and I think I can get all 8 out of this one skill saw blade. So let's see. All right, so I can easily get all 8 of my claws out of this one skill saw blade. I got 1 cut out, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom. So now I just need to cut all these out. I'll show you what that looks like when I got them out. Okay, so I got the saw blade cut into the 8 pieces. So now I actually have to cut out the claw pieces so they look something like this. So each one has the claw marked on it, so it's just takes a little bit of time, but you just got to cut out the rough claw piece, and then you can polish it all down with your sharpening polishing blade. Okay, so now I've got the rough shape of the claws cut out. You can see they're all pretty close to the shape that I want, but now what I'm going to have to do is take my polishing blade and take off any of the rough edges. I'm going to round off the bottom part here because that part's going to be in my palm, so I don't want any sharp edges there. And I'm just going to sharpen the whole thing up and get it ready to install, because you can see this one doesn't even have a point on it. So these will take a little bit of grinding to get them where you want them, but it'll be worth it when you're done. So let's do that. All right, well, here we got our claws all ready to go. As I said, I first cut out the sections, then I cut out a real crude outline of the claws, and then I took my my polishing sharpening blade and I ground them down so they're all ready to go. So once you got your 8 claws ready to go, you got them sharpened and in the shape you want. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take a 1/2-inch steel drill bit and you're going to drill the hole where your bolt is going to go through. So you want to make sure that you drill the hole in the same place on all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole in the first one where I want it, and then I'm going to line it up like this and lay the one claw over the other and drill through the first claw into the second, and then take the first claw out and do that for all 4. That way you know that all of them are going to line up and your claws are all going to be pointing and at the right angle and in the right direction. So let's do that. All right, so as you can see, I've got the holes drilled for my first set of claws. So here's what's going to happen. So I'm going to make this for my left hand. So what I'm going to do is I need to space these claws to sit on my fingers. So what I'm going to have to do is put them on my fingers, because these claws have to be lined up with the center of your finger like that. That way you can put pressure on them. So these are really very custom-made tools specifically to the user, because the claws, everything has to be the right length. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it on your hand and you're going to measure out exactly where you want the fingers to be. So for me, I'm going to want it to be exactly right there. Now what I'm going to do, because the dowel is what goes in between the claws, so that you can really crank it down, because right now they're just loose. You know, they'll slide back and forth on the bolt. So you need to cut your dowel to the exact lengths in between the fingers, so that when you put the nut on and tighten it down, these claws stay exactly where you want them in the fingers. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it on your hand like I have it here, and then very carefully you're going to release your hand and you're going to keep that spacing. Now you can do this one at a time, or you can do this with all at once. I would recommend one at a time. And then you're going to simply mark on your bolt with a Sharpie where exactly that claw goes. So I'm just going to slide it a tiny bit and mark exactly where that claw goes there. So now I've got where the one claw is with that mark, and then I'm going to mark this one where the other claw is right there. So now I'm going to take all the claws off. So now what I need to do is I need to mark on my dowel the exact same distance between the two. So you can see how I got these marks. So essentially, when I cut this, the dowel will provide the perfect spacing for my claws so they line up with the fingers. So you do this, so I've just done this with the first one, but you're gonna have to do this with all the claws. So I'm just gonna do that and show you the result. Okay, so here's the wooden piece for the first section that I just showed you. So now what you're gonna have to do is take your 1/2-inch drill bit and just drill a hole right through the center of this in order to slide it onto the bolt. All right, here we go. So I've drilled a 1/2-inch hole right through the center. Now, if you happen to cut the wood at a little bit of a slant or anything, you can easily just polish it flat with your polishing blade. You can see there, I've done that on that side. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide my first claw onto my bolt. I'm going to slide my spacer on there, and I'm going to slide my second claw on. So there we go. So that's the spacing for the first set of claws. As you can see, it works really well. So now you just go ahead and you repeat those steps for the spacing for the rest of the claws. Okay, so once you have the dowels cut and drilled, you're going to simply put the nut on the end here, and it's pretty much functional. However, we're going to add a strap onto it so that you can strap it to your hand to assist in climbing everything. So let's do that. All right, so adding the strap to this is really very simple. So you simply take the strap with the ladder bracket. You're gonna need, I don't know how long you want it, but just enough to go around your hand. You're gonna unscrew off your bolt. Okay, so now what you need to do is install your straps on these. So you're gonna take all the little parts and pieces off, all the dowels and everything, and you're gonna get two sections of strap. So you'll have your section with the ladder bracket and then just another section. So then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna cut off like a 6-inch section of the strap. And when you get the chance, you wanna melt the end. Do that later. And then you're going to take your knife and you're just going to make a hole in the center of the strap. So there I've got a hole in the center, big enough to slide the bolt onto. So you're gonna slide the bolt onto it, and the first section of your strap, really doesn't matter whether it's the ladder bracket side or the other side, but you're gonna slide that onto your bolt, slide it all the way to the end just like that. So now you're good to go on that count. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna slide your first claw on, and you're gonna go back and basically reassemble your claws, because now you've got that on there. So you put your claws back together how you want them. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna do the same thing. So now you're gonna do the same thing with the side with your ladder bracket. And again, you wanna make sure there's enough there so that you can strap it to your hand. So like, I don't know how big your hand is, but so you're gonna have to determine how much you want there based on the size of your hand. Probably won't be very much, so I'm only giving like 4 inches on the ladder bracket side. And like before, you're gonna cut right down the center, enough to get it onto the bolt. All right, so you're pretty much done here. Like I said, you get the strap on this side. So then you're gonna take the strap, slide it on the same way onto this side, on the other side. You're gonna take a washer. You don't need a washer, but I would recommend a washer. Put that on there, and then you're gonna put the nut on. Now all you gotta do is line the claws up right where you want them. So you put them on your hand, you see what angle you want the claws at, and then you just simply tighten these down. And then you wanna make sure that the straps are facing the back of your hand. So the straps are gonna go around the back of your palm. So you wanna rotate those so they're in the direction you want them before you tighten everything down. And once you have the straps where you want it and the claws where you want it, simply take a couple of crescent wrenches and tighten this sucker down. Okay, well this set is finished. So I tightened the bolt down. I got the straps where I want them. So this one's for my left hand. So I just simply put it in my left hand in my palm. Then I go around the back, and you're gonna tighten it down with the ladder bracket. So you wanna prep the ladder bracket. So you put the straps to the ladder bracket, you simply put it on your palm where you'd want it, and then you simply crank that ladder bracket down, and you got yourself a pretty nice set of claws right there. You can see it stays in my hand, it's not coming off, pretty secure. You can cut off any extra there you want, but it lines up perfectly with my fingers. So you just repeat all those steps for the other hand, and you got yourself a really nice set of fully functional ninja claws. So I'm just gonna hit this with some black paint to make it look a little bit better, and then these are done and ready to use. All right, guys, well, these claws are done. I am very pleased with how these turned out. The design works very well. The straps, real easy. So to use these claws, you simply put them on the palm of your hand, go to the strap, you crank it down, and they're ready to go. So there we go, I got them on like that. These are pretty dang cool. They're very functional. You could easily use these to climb ice, climb trees. You could use them to defend yourself. You can use them as an offensive or defensive weapon. Plus, these things look pretty dang badass. These look much cooler than the ninja claws they sell in the store. I'm very pleased with how these turned out. They're very strong, very sturdy. these things are ready to go. So there you go. That's how you make some ninja claws. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. You got any suggestions for other ideas, videos you want me to do, let me know in the comments, and have a great day. I'm gonna go climb some trees.